Today, we'll go on a journey through the everyday use of data and data analysis. We'll touch on randomization and bias and come to a conclusion if perfect is really the worst enemy of the good. This is two poles, not so far apart. Enjoy.
So just wanted to say that all the opinions in this podcast are our own and they do not represent the institutions that we're associated with.
You did mention, we talk around, because you've mentioned the causes and the correlation and the things. So you do talk a lot about the, what's it called, the cause and correlation? Is that the...
Well, so like causation and correlation.
Causation and correlation, here you go.
Correlation doesn't imply causation, but it's even more complicated than that because, at least in scientific experiments, if we can do such experiments, we can actually infer causation. That's why, again, I'm going back to my field. If you want to show that something is effective, let's say you want to introduce a new medication to the market.
Okay.
You run clinical trials. What are clinical trials? Well, there's this beautiful thing that it's not actually very old, but it's called randomization. So for example, if you want to enroll individuals in a clinical trial, you don't tell medical doctors, it's like, oh, you look at the patient and say, oh, this is a good candidate for this medication because that might introduce bias. Right. So randomize. Think about it as flipping a coin. Okay. Yes, if it falls heads, you go to one arm. If it falls tails, you go to the other arm. Right. That it doesn't guarantee that the, let's say, two groups are exactly the same, but it gives you much more confidence that they'll be similar. So now, this is with so this is with humans. In industrial experiments, this is much easier because you can tweak something. You cannot people, one group will be smoking cigarettes, the other one will not be. It's unethical. Right. In industrial experiments, that's much easier, or agricultural experiments or something, because you can design it and you can control many things.
That's what I wanted to ask, because how do you include the randomization? So is it just, the number of data? That's not it, is it? It's not just the number of points.
Yeah, randomization, it's more, you want to balance different groups on the characteristics that you might not even know. So, just to give you an example, it might be important for a medication if somebody is from certain subpopulation. Okay. But if you were, and maybe you didn't know before the experiment that that's important.
Right. But that's actually where I'm trying, because you don't know everything at the beginning, do you? Exactly. That's the whole idea of how you try to do it. So are you actually inclining, while going through it, you might actually want to include more?
You don't.
No, you don't. Okay, fair enough.
So this is actually, that's an interesting topic because randomization balances things on the things you know and you don't know. Okay. Because just by chance, you might end up in one group or the other, yes? So what I was saying, if you are from certain subpopulation, before the experiment is done, you don't know what group this person will end up in. But if it's enough such people, they'll be balanced. Right. If you flip a coin, 10 times, well, you might get, 3 heads and 7 tails. That's very probable. If you flip a coin 100 times, it's hard to get 30 heads and 70 tails. That's almost, the probability of that is very small. Okay. If you flip a coin 1,000 times, 300, 700, that's practically,
that's not going to happen. Yeah. Oh, all right.
So that's why this is nice.
Well, the more we talk about it, actually, I'm getting to a bit of a conclusion. I'm trying to, get all of the things that we talk about. And again, I did mention at the very beginning, it's a volatile world. You have to you have to make decisions on the spot. And a good example for me, and there might be a lot of people which will be, that's going to be an unpopular opinion that I have, but it's mine, is I have a lot of colleagues that are like, and I actually tried it as well, like Six Sigma, green belts, black belts, there's special training sort of layers you can go on. The one thing I always had an issue with is it took time. And even I think some of the guys that came back and talked to me about it, they say like, right, I mean, to do it properly, you really have to design it in a good way. You know, you really have to take the time to gather the data, to put all of those, things around it that are actually going to make it efficient and actually going to give you that good answer. In business, sometimes there's just you know, you don't have that much time for every single thing. So, I mean, I'm trying to get to some sort of a idea, and I'm getting, again, coming back to your "it depends" question. That's probably going to do it. There's probably things you can just jump in and use what I would call like a methodology light. You know, just gather some data, put it in some sort of things, and then look at it from, I don't know, costs. Look at it from risk. I mean, you've mentioned you work in medical studies. I'm guessing there's probably much less, you know, methodology light in there, but I'm thinking, you know, in some of those things is there, but in the other, to your point, you really need that design of experiment to actually get to some answers, especially if there's a lot of moving parts and things around that. Yeah, we talked a lot about planning.
Yeah. So I wouldn't want to call something like, you don't want to make like shortcuts.
Right, okay.
Because it's, I mean, things can go wrong very easily. On the other hand, you know, this old expression that perfection is the biggest enemy of the good. Yes. So is it better to do something, maybe not in a perfect way, versus doing nothing?
Right.
And this is, I would say, if you have to make like a business decision within, you know, a month, and somebody tells you, well, to do it properly, it will take half a year, this is not actually a proper solution.
Right.
Yes,
okay.
Because if you have to make a decision within a month,
then
you have to make a decision within a month.
Fair enough. Okay.
So this is, I mean, this solution is beyond the space of not optimal solutions,
right.
of all the solutions. It's not there.
Ah, okay. So it's basically it's just not fit for purpose. It's
yeah.
Okay.
It's, you know.
But then when you take it, so I'm guessing when you say shortcuts, it's outside of that. But can you still? I'm guessing you can still make or come up to some sort of outcome. It's just, I guess, you accepting a bigger risk or a bigger, fault or the level of. Yeah.
Again, I don't want to repeat myself here, but you know this. I like sometimes using these proverbs, or sometimes there are cliches, you know,
right.
that the perfect is the biggest enemy of the good.
Right.
But here, yes, you might not have the most optimal solution if you don't include time in the equation.
Right.
But if you had, you know, one of the elements of your solution was time, that's just not a solution. Yes,
right.
If somebody tells you that they will solve it in half a year,
Yeah. Okay. It just reminded me of one. I mean, again, in the topic of gathering data and having the right thing and preparing for all of it, there was a cool example I've heard. Again, it might be a myth or something around there, but apparently in World War II, when the Spitfires went out, Spitfires are one of the airplanes they used over there. They basically, when they were coming back from a combat mission over somewhere in Europe, they would actually look at the bullet holes and the ways or the elements which had the most of them. Basically, the ones that look like Swiss cheese. Those are the ones when they started to put more bigger elements or something, which was much more bulletproof at that point. And it's still the actual effect of that thing was there was absolutely nothing. They still have it. So apparently the issue with that thing is that actually those elements could withstand those bullets. Those planes that were hit in some other elements just didn't come back to the airport, and therefore the data that we had, it was the wrong elements that were reinforced and forged and do in a better way around that, which is, I don't know, I think it fits.
We call it bias.
Bias.
Because we didn't observe, as you said, the planes that didn't come back, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So we actually were fixing the problem that didn't exist.
Okay.
So going back to this randomized experiment, we couldn't just send planes and, you know, we could make this experiment, let's say, at the testing phase, where we would be shooting at the planes, and then we would see which ones came down, which ones survived the the anti-aircraft bullets, yes?
Yep.
So this is one of the issues that I would say these days we have to be very careful about. And this pops up, this was an old example from like World War II. I live in US, and one of the things that is just continuing the same example that we've had over the past few presidential elections was that
we've heard about them, yeah, we do
but
hear
they
about them a lot.
So I don't know if you knew that.
Okay.
They happen every 4 years on the Tuesday after the second Sunday in November.
Tuesday, okay.
So it's not like in
I didn't
Europe
know
that you can call an election.
Right.
I know when the election will happen
Okay.
in the year 2124, so in 100 years, because it will be the Tuesday after the second Sunday in November.
Okay.
Unless we change the constitution, but that's another story. Hasn't happened yet for quite a few years, 200 plus. So, going to the topic, so polls. What do? You try to find out who is more popular before the election. And you say, candidate A is more popular than candidate B. The problem is that polling agencies, they would, let's say, call stationary phones. Do you know what a stationary phone is?
I have no idea.
Landline?
Yeah, I do know what that is. Yeah.
So,
stationary phones.
Yes, phones.
Yes, I do know what that is.
Yeah.
Eric, I do know what that is. Yeah. I do consider myself as a millennial, but I do know what a phone is.
I'm Gen X, but that's another story. So, do you have a landline at home? Okay,
I actually do, but only because by some weird coincidence. Yeah.
If you think about it, many young people, I don't have a landline at home. So if somebody is calling only landlines, who do you get? You usually get older people only. If you call during the day, you get older people.
Right.
Bias.
Right.
What it means is you don't have a representative sample of the population.
Right.
It means that you gather data not in the same proportion from all the people you would like to gather data from.
That's interesting. That's actually...
And we had, huge errors in the prediction of the elections.
What we use a lot in business now? Like surveys and employee surveys. And they're all online now. If you think about it, and again, look, I'll base it on the experience that I had before, but it's all some sort of answer that you do in an electronic form that you put a score from 1 to 10 and whatever. Can there be because it's a very specific methodology, it's a very specific way of having communication with an employee. And actually, what happens after, I'm not going to talk about if you have 70 questions, things like that. What happens after question 20, everything just goes there. But I'm starting to think we should probably have a bit like, I'm not saying we should have landlines and call the employees from there, but I'm guessing it might actually introduce quite a lot of, because it is a survey. It's only, a prediction of something that we do. So it might not be right.
Again, this is probably a topic for like half an hour,
Sure.
but one of the things is short, to the point, and ask questions in the same way. And it's not just doing it once.
Right.
Doing that, a few times at random times.
Okay.
That's, this is where going back to the design of, how to do things. And one of the things is, why am I saying not doing it once? Because you don't know somebody's baseline. I might be a gloomy person, and I might always say, no, I'm not doing well, I'm depressed, but if I say it every single time, let's say you do it for simplicity monthly, and I give the same answer all the time, it's like, this guy is okay.
Okay.
But changes, that's what I'll be looking out for.
Okay, right. Interesting. Again, I think I need an expert here, but it does definitely pose some questions in my mind around, and again, this is the bit where I'm trying to touch when we talk about is, following the trials. Obviously, we won't have answer for all of those things, and you don't have time for doing it, but just gives you that sort of didn't call it kill switch, but a bit of a, the warning leaflet that I talk about it, because some of the things we talk about are quite serious and might drive quite serious decisions, and that will affect lives. No, that's interesting. That's, as always, I have more questions in my mind than answers, but I guess those are the right ones.
It's not the last time we talk, yeah? So let's,
I guess we can figure out how to answer them. If you find the topics in the discussion interesting, please do subscribe and push the subscribe button, because that will allow us to make many more interesting subjects into our conversation.
Yeah, we will have guests, we will have, we'll talk about other interesting topics, so let us know. What do you think?
Let us know what you think and push that button, please.